Hey everyone, I wanted to provide an updated version of my ultralight hiking gear list. As always, I use this gear throughout Canada and for international travel. I often do trails around 50 to 100 kilometers, but I'd easily feel confident through hiking with this gear as well. So I'll start with my shelter. On the far left, I use a Sea to Summit Nano bug net on most of my trips. I use this since Ontario goes through a pretty infamous rotation of mosquitoes, black flies, horse and deer flies during the peak hiking months. It can be a pain to work with as it can get tangled, but at the end of the day, 5 minutes of work and playing around with it is worth a good sleep. On the far right is my basic ground sheet. It's essentially a giant piece of saran wrap, but it also works well to keep my gear and quilt clean. And then in the middle I have my 9 by 6 foot Cuban fiber tarp from Z-Packs. This is what the tarp looks like when I pitch it in half pyramid. I started tarping by using the classic A-frame pitch, but my go-to recently has been the half pyramid. Overall, tarping is pretty sweet. It's very versatile and really puts you out there if you want to test yourself a bit. And for stakes, I just use a balance of round spikes and V-shaped stakes. And overall, a good benefit of tarping as well is how small you can pack it down. These volume savings across all your gear are pretty important, as it might let you go down in backpack size and you can save further weight that way. Most of the times, however, when I'm on trail, I just loosely stuff it in the bottom of my backpack, and I don't bother packing it away like this. It's the same for my quilt, which most hikers just stuff into their backpack and it fills any voids. Speaking of quilts, mine's an Enlightened Equipment 20-degree bag. I don't use any pad straps, I just directly connect it underneath me, and otherwise I use the neck cinch to keep drafts out. It's rated for 20 degrees, as I mentioned, but it feels more like a 30-degree bag. This is a pretty early Enlightened Equipment bag, and I think they've made some improvements since then. I've heard good things about other quilts on the market, however, and there's starting to be some pretty good budget options too, like UGQ and the Hammock Gear Burrow, among others. Food storage is pretty basic, but it can be controversial because of bears. I have 3 methods that I use myself. When I'm solo hiking on long, isolated trails, I sleep with my food in an op sack under my tarp. This is a personal choice because of how dangerous I think black bears are. The second method is that some parks straight up require a bear canister, so I use one. And my third method is just traditional hang your food. If I'm on a less isolated trail or I'm with friends and in a group, I'll hang my food at night using the PCT method. The second controversial thing about food, which was a bit of a meme in 2017 and 2018, is whether you bring a stove or go no-cook without one. I personally switched to no-cook for all of 2018 so far, and I haven't looked back. But again, this is just a personal decision. I still use a stove on group hikes that aren't pushing stupidly long distances, and I used one on every hike before 2018. When I do use one, I use a classic dirt bag setup, as you see here. So it's got a cat can alcohol stove, a 750 milliliter pot, a cheap windshield with a lighter and a spoon. Overall, the main thing for food is to bring food that you know you can eat and that you want to eat on trail, because you need to really get those calories in while you're hiking. It's a good idea to do some research and get ideas for food from other hikers, but make sure they actually work for you before you do a 200-kilometer hike with like just trail mix or something. So this is my Ditty bag, which contains all the little gadgets and miscellaneous stuff that most hikers either like overpack or worry too much about. It's good to make some volume and weight cuts in some of these choices, but I don't fully omit things like first aid or hygiene and become stupid light. So starting from the right, I have some repair tape for my shelter and clothing, a cord to charge my phone with a battery pack, an extra pair of socks for at night, a head bug net, a trowel, an extra lighter, map and compass, which my phone also has one, through night torch light, toothbrush and toothpaste, and my first aid kit. So I won't spend 20 minutes debating first aid, but my personal choice is to carry a set of items that will cover my like realistic and general conditions that I might come across during my hike. So this includes band-aids, gauze, tape for cuts and similar problems. Then I have a set of pills to cover most issues like diarrhea, muscle aches, headaches, vomiting, pain, fever, anti-inflammatory. I have a small set of tweezers for thorns, splinters, and a set of needle and thread for more so for actually sewing gear than wounds or anything like that, but it's there if I need it. And one of my biggest recommendations is to bring some kind of moisturizer for your feet, especially on long hikes. I do this in the morning and at night because if my feet become damaged and wrinkled, then there's just no way I'm hiking 40 to 50 kilometers the next day. So anyways, for water, this is pretty basic. I use a Catadine B-Free to filter, and then a 1 liter bottle with like pop top sports lid thing to drink from. I've used a Sawyer Squeeze as well in the past, and I'd easily recommend that along with the B-Free. They're both pretty good. And otherwise I just add more bottles as I need to, but this has almost always been enough for me. Okay, up next is clothing and outerwear. This is my black diamond hiking pole that I use for my shelter, and I'm down to just one hiking pole, and it works way better for myself while actively hiking. My shoes are Innovate X Talons, but most trail runners will do the trick as long as they're breathable and have pretty aggressive tread. I wear short wool toe socks, a random mesh hat. My raincoat is a scuffed frog's tog, and I use women's dance pants for wind and rain pants. I wear some Under Armour 5-inch short shorts with a built-in liner. My go-to shirt for 3-season trips, even in colder off-seasons or really hot summer, is a featherweight merino long-sleeve shirt. It's warm enough with outer layers in the off-season, and the chest zip with sun protection on the arms works great for summer. I have a Mech T3 hoodie as a mid-layer. In the States, everyone's addicted to their different grid fleece hoodies, and this is Canada's version of that. Grid fleeces seem to make a pretty big difference. Overall, it's pretty warm, comfy, and not bulky at all. And finally, I sometimes bring tights for sleeping in cold mornings in the off-season. All this gear goes into my frameless 36-liter Gossamer Gear Murmur backpack. I've had this for over 3 years, and it's gotten through everything I've thrown at it, so for myself, the myth of ultralight gear being like flimsy or fragile is just out the window. My purple shoulder pocket is currently broken. It's from Z-Packs, but I'm replacing it with one from Northern Ultralight. This is a shout out to a new ultralight company starting up in Canada. And the final controversial topic that I'll bring up is hip belts. I don't use them because I find that my shoulder pocket does everything I need, but like every other category of hiking gear that I've presented here, it's best to just do a bunch of research and make personal decisions that work for you, and you'll end up with a sweet kit that works for the hikes that you do. One of the last pieces is the inner pack liner that most hikers have been using to waterproof their bags. It just tends to work better than traditional exterior pack covers and is less clunky. Finally, I lied about hip belts being the last controversial topic I'll talk about here, because this is my closed cell foam 1/8 inch sleeping pad. Yeah, it feels like I'm sleeping on nothing, it is really warm, and I still sleep really great, and no, it's not for everyone. If you do want to try a CCF pad in your kit, just do exactly that. Try it out, test it for a few nights either at home or in the field, and see if it's for you, and if it's not, there's always some really great inflatable ones on the market too. So yeah, that's all my gear. My base kit that I would use in the summer is around 5.1 pounds, which is obviously pretty damn light. This is always a dynamic number though, and it doesn't really mean anything. The number changes with extra clothing that I bring in the spring or the fall, bug protection, if I bring a battery bank, whether I'm hiking in a group or not, and a ton of other variables. And of course, feel free to follow the channel for any updates on me actually using this gear and going on hikes. Recently I've just been doing some views videos of some cool things I've seen, but I'll get back to fully narrated hiking videos eventually for 2019 as well. Thanks for checking it out.